Yes, they all criticize the president if certain policies go wrong by the ministers.
That's the problem.
Wow.
That is the problem. The president who has good intentions cannot carry. For instance, the president today cannot sack Moro.
Why not?
Because Moro has the support of a very strong member who has recommended his name.
Wow.
And we are going into an election period. Mr. President will not want, anything from any constituency if he sacks him, which he ought to have done immediately. But because of the influence of that particular man in certain areas that might affect his re-election, he wouldn't do it.
But can the man be reasonable enough to understand that, look, there's a serious matter here? You need to either get a replacement for him or something happens.
If you ask for my advice, there are many ways to skin a cat. Mr. President could have used, if he had been properly advised, and which I believe now, because I had the good fortune of talking to one of his newly appointed advisors. And I believe if they have one or two of those people in his cabinet, I'm talking now about the appointment of the new chief of staff. I had the opportunity of sitting down with him. And I know he has good intentions for this country. And I believe now that he can look at Mr. President eyeball to eyeball and advise him. If we have 2, 3, or 4 of such caliber of people now surrounding Mr. President, this country will move forward. There are many ways to skin a cat. As soon as that incident happened, Mr. President should have declared, oh, I want a judicial. Now he has thrown it away from him. The decision of that judicial, commission will be abided by the government. Nobody will now, no strong member of the party, no strong appointee of Moro will dare to say, oh, Mr. President, how do you treat my boy that way? He will say, look, this is what the judicial inquiry said. I am only implementing it.
So this is one of the ills of the presidential system.
That is one of the ills of the presidential. But it is only peculiar to Nigeria. Look at America today. The appointment of secretaries to government or so-called ministers are done solely by the president himself. The new secretary to the Treasury or the new secretary to the Defense are Republicans. And the party will not book news. Because once the president is elected, he should be left to pick his men. But that is not so in Nigeria. The party will strangulate him. Top officials in government and the party will strangulate him. And the poor man has no alternative.
So juxtapose that, juxtapose this with parliamentary. If we're in a parliamentary system, what would have happened?
Good. You see, before you can become a minister in a parliamentary system, first you must seek for an election within your constituency. You must be a member of parliament. So that when you go wrong in any way in the performance of your duty, you are carpeted in the cabinet. And if a vote of no confidence is passed on you in the House, you resign. Well, that is a system that will have curbed the excesses of Moro acting without due diligence. Nobody now can query him except the National Assembly. I was listening to my good brother Falana when he said this is not an issue for the National Assembly. I disagree with him.
Why?
My reason is this. He analyzed it correctly. Falana said, look, you have collected money not appropriated. You have appointed a consultant to do an exercise which you as a minister should not have done. It is the board and management of the immigration. Look, the police have done recruitment. Nobody has died in it. The customs have done recruitment, nobody has died. Many other agencies of government. But why is it immigration? 2 years ago is the same story. Now it's the same story. The question now is, under what authority did you levy this 1,000, this thing? Now that money, did it go into the consultant's account? or did it go into the ministry's account?
Is the ministry's account also the federation account?
No, I'm coming first.
Okay.
But you have to identify. They appointed a consultant.
Okay.
The consultant sold these things at 1,000, made billions of money. Now, did he keep that money in his account? Because this is money accruing to the federation account. Or did he pay the money and deducted his own commission? Now, this is where the National Assembly comes in, because the law is that no agency of government, no government can spend any money that is not appropriated. Now, the National Assembly, unlike what Fallon said, has the power to know why money not appropriated has been spent, because it is illegal.
Because if he charges that money
Yeah.
and utilizes that money
Yeah.
without it being appropriated,
Yeah.
it's wrong.
It's wrong. It's an illegal act. Therefore, the National Assembly has the power, at least in that area, to look into that aspect. And if he's found guilty to have spent money not appropriated, he has to resign and he might be charged to court.
Mr. Clarke, the conference was supposedly put together to smoothen the rough edges and take out all this interference, help to sort out the issues of interferences between party politics and leadership. Now, in this situation, where we are now, do you think we can achieve that?
You see, the way Nigeria runs, a presidential system cannot work. Not only that, it is too expensive. 80% of money Nigeria makes today goes into the system of governance. I am not too sure whether if you call Mr. President today and ask him to name all his 40-something ministers, he will not be able to name them at the same time, except he looks into a book. If you ask him how many special advisors he has, he cannot tell you offhand without going to look into a book, not to talk of special assistants. Then the ministers have advisors, they have special assistants. We are spending too much money in maintaining this government. We cannot afford it. We need this, even though members are being told you need to put in 167 days in a year, which gives the impression that it's a part-time job. But it is a full-time job to them. And if you know, let me give you an example. I took some of my lawyers to say hello to President Obasanjo when I went to Abeokuta. And I challenged him. I said, you started a system where now members of the Senate and House of Representatives are just doling, to themselves allowances without any restriction. He said, look, Robert, stop there. He called 2 senators from his inner room and said, come and hear what Chief Robert Clarke is saying. I warned you. He said, when I started it innocently. Today, it costs Nigeria, me and you from our tax purpose, it costs Nigeria 245 million a year to maintain 1 senator. And I'm quoting Obasanjo. He says it costs Nigeria 245 million a year to maintain 1 senator. Multiply that by 93. Not to talk of the House of Reps. We cannot afford it. We have to change the system of governance. And this is the correct time. Mr. President has done us a favor. And I'll be eternally grateful to him for giving us this opportunity to change the system.
So how would that work with the Constitution? You know, the National Assembly is doing an amendment of the Constitution now. The National Conference is holding. There's no law, which is one of the things that a lot of people have argued about. There's no law backing the National Conference. So how would that work? Assuming the delegates agree to change the system of government, would the National Assembly agree?
Now, that is why I said in the beginning of this program that we're not going to achieve anything from this National Conference. For instance, if this conference agrees to change the system of governance, it has to go to the House of the Parliament, whatever you call it, Senate and House of Reps, because without the approval, before it goes to referendum, there is no legality behind that resolution. Now, you and I, knowing how people are enjoying in the House of Reps today, knowing how senators are enjoying when they are going out with entourage, with a policeman, with this one, do you think they will want to change the system of governance? They will not want to change it. They will vote it down. And if it's voted down, it cannot go to referendum. So that is the problem we have. Any change that will be inimical to the interests of the present members of the House, they will not accept it. And they will have used their surrogates now who are in the National Assembly to make sure it never happens. So the system of governance is not going to be changed by this national conference.
But I was going to bring this matter because I have heard people say that about the former President Obasanjo, that was it not during his era, his time as the military leader, that we changed from parliamentary to presidential system. So how come they didn't see the ills at that time, which they see now?
Look, no matter what anybody says, the problem we have on this presidential system was caused by Obasanjo. Let me be honest about it. He's my friend, but he is the bane of the problem we have on this presidential system. When the 50 wise men were brought up in the 70s to draw up a constitution, when Awolowo refused to be part of the 50 men, and Chief Rotimi Williams had to lead the remaining 49 men, the system of governance then was supposed to be parliamentary. But because of the influence of the military, Obasanjo was the head of the military then, they changed the old system of parliamentary system into a presidential system. So Obasanjo's era was the era that brought in presidential system. He might have had good intentions. Let me be honest about that. He might have had good intentions when he did it for Nigeria, thinking, oh, it is a progressive way of governance. But he never knew that what he started then will now be, what it is today. You can't concentrate all powers to an individual, a governor. Any opposition in any state, and that is why today it is very funny. If a governor moves from one party to the other, you will find that the whole state follows him. Today, Okorocha has moved from APGA to APC. By the next election, APC will claim that Imo State. Amechi has moved from PDP to APC. By the next election, APC will clear Rivers State. Just because one man on top has done it. And why is it? Because everybody owes their living, contracts, whatever you say, appointments, to that one single man.